smart parking scenario for the Hera game. In many big cities, one of the main challenges is parking. The problem is twofold, since often there are not sufficient parking for all, which cause drivers to circulate often for a long time through streets, polluting, of course, the city as such. This results, of course, in increasing CO2 emissions and stress from both drivers and city inhabitants. Smart parking systems are being integrated in cities to show drivers where to drive through screen arrows to the nearest parking, saving noise, congestion, and CO2 as well as stress. A smart parking system relies on, of course, a stable internet infrastructure, a room for establishment of parking lots, which may mean that some people need to discard of buildings to make room for smart parking lots. There has to be an agreement in the city that this is a good system. And then, of course, all the roads, energy infrastructure, and other types of infrastructure needs to be in place in order for that to happen. As mentioned, smart parking can lead to lower congestion from cars and therefore also lower CO2 emissions, less noise when cars are not having to stop and start all the time, fewer irritated and stressed drivers looking for parking, and of course it can lead on a secondary perspective to more public transport, making people park away from city centers and in that way also clearing city centers for more congestion. And it may also lead to a need an upgrade in internet and technology generally to support the setup. The smart parking scenario challenges students to understand the complexity in deciding in smart parking solutions that will change the way that the city runs. Teachers can It teaches students about the internet antennas that is needed to support a city for a smart parking solution, and it demands that students are open towards a real life challenge and can work towards a solution that meets several goals for a city. To solve this and to achieve the goals for the scenarios, students should be aware that they cannot do this alone, but needs to find a way to collaborate with other students, which is presented in roles, different roles in the scenario. Students must find a way to understand the city challenges and work together to establish these smart parking solutions while they are also fulfilling other city relevant goals. We have in this scenario suggested four roles for you can say a realistic scenario setup: a mayor of the city, an internet service provider, a parking contractor, a lobbyist, which is also resembling, you can say, a normal citizen, and they all have different goals and interests. The mayor of the city wants somehow to increase the happiness in the city. He wants to secure that he is re-elected, and in that way he needs to increase the happiness. He also wants to increase a predefined revenue in the city, making it a city that is growing in wealth and, of course, prosperity. And as a third perspective, he wants to reduce the air pollution in the city. He knows that many inhabitants are interested in that, and that is also one way for him to actually go towards getting more happiness in the city. He can do that by giving permission to build internet infrastructure, to give permission to establish smart parking lots, and to give permissions to build buildings or even tear them down. He can tear down buildings himself, and he can also give new buildings. The internet service provider has a keen goal to increase the internet coverage in the city, and of course also to increase his personal revenue. He can do that by building ISP buildings in the city to secure internet coverage, by getting a permission, of course, from the mayor to build the ISP buildings, and to make sure that other stakeholders in the city has a need for internet, such as, of course, the parking contractor. The parking contractor has a goal to increase the number of smart parking lots in the city and again to have a personal increase in revenue. This person can tear down existing buildings to make room for smart parking, but only if he gets a permission from the mayor. This person can also build smart parking lots, again, if getting a permission from the mayor. And this person also needs agreements with the internet service provider to have internet coverage because otherwise there is no smart parking lot as such. The lobbyist is representative of any person in the city but has a saying, you can say, in the decision making around the city. This person wants to increase happiness in the city, to decrease pollution in the city center, to decrease traffic in the city center, and to avoid the tearing down of buildings in the city center because this person actually feels that the city center is appropriate as it is. The person, the lobbyist, can do that by supporting the solutions that the mayor have to fulfill some of the goals and also to support building roads for cycles and public transport, which is essential for the lobbyist. Notice that in order to actually fulfill a criteria about having smart parking in the city, all the roles have to need to discuss, agree, and compromise outside the real game environment. The game is set up as also having environments for brainstorming and working through agile setups, and they have possibility to discuss, plan, and execute actions agreed upon by the roles in the game. This means that there is a possibility to work also remotely, but if the roles are in the same room, it may also be an advantage that they can discuss face to face on some of these more complicated things. Then let's see an example of the gameplay. Here is an example of an ISP building that the internet service provider can build. This creates internet connectivity in the city. There is a focus on the internet city that is built on traffic that must be controlled and congestion and pollution lowered. The smart parking facilities can be built that to lower traffic and congestion. And tearing down industry can lower air pollution, but may also lower the happiness in the city, which is one of, you can say, the complexities of the scenario. Parks, museums, and sports facilities can increase happiness in the city, but again, maybe they cannot just be put there. Maybe there is some kind of compromise to be made in order to tear down a building or two. As a teaching element, it is essential to make assessments of the process and also in order to support the students in their work and their learning. So we have suggested these 4 teaching elements that can be made and a sort of assessment. Groups or teams can make self-evaluation as part of an achievement. There can be made peer evaluation through class presentations. And of course, the teacher can give peer feedback to all the groups and teams of what they are doing and how they are performing. A classroom discussion can make learning from one group also into a bigger classroom. There's a transnational Erasmus Plus project with partners in 5 different countries: in Estonia, Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Denmark. Visit us at heroproject.eu for more information.